Yeah, I love my team, and I'm sure that we'll come back stronger. It hurts a lot.
I guess also it.
That was Charles Leclerc after today's Monaco Grand Prix. Unfortunately, disappointing for him after Ferrari throwing it away. So, yeah, interesting race. Good race, Roger? Were you entertained?
Yep, I enjoyed it a lot more than most Monaco Grand Prix that there are. So I think there could have been a lot more drama with the rain and all that part, but I'm sure we'll get into chatting about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we'll start the show.
Let's do it.
Hello, even though you've heard the intro, welcome to That F1 Show, our weekly podcast breaking down each F1 race. And this week was the Monaco Grand Prix, probably the most famous race in the world. Definitely the most famous F1 race, but probably the most famous race in the world. Is it a favourite of yours, Roger?
Oh yeah, definitely up top three at least, and good way even to begin Alan, because a lot of the talk this weekend is that after the finish line today, that is the last race that there is within the contract of Monaco. So there
Oh,
isn't set to be one next year because they're still in talks around is there going to be another one, is there not? So this has been chatted around for a couple of years now, being like it's just there's no overtaking all this. Like, is it really worth it? Then everyone comes back saying, "Are you mad?" Of course, like it's Monte Carlo. Like everyone loves to be there. It's the one that the drivers they call the jewel in the crown. It's the one that every driver wants to win. That other than their home race, like it's like a second home race to most of them. So it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal track street to be at. And from that, I think it's just I love it. I've been there three times. Been there once for the race, twice for the race actually. So it's incredible. Like if you ever, I know you've been as well, but if you're listening to this and you've never been, it's well worth going. You can do it cheap. Doesn't cost a fortune. If you have a lot of money, go all out. So it's incredible. It really is. But yeah, so I think that they will in the next coming weeks they will strike a new deal. Like it's always going to be on. Um, Interesting. They asked a few drivers about it. They all said like Monaco can't not be on the calendar, but they all did say that they would love something to change. So I'm not sure what that could look like. Probably something that we could chat about on a non-race week, like what different things you could do.
well, that's the thing. Like, I suppose it makes it more difficult that it's a street circuit, but could they expand it? Could they widen some stretches of road? Like obviously because it's a street circuit, you can't just it's not up to F1. You need obviously
Yeah,
I assume Monaco works like any city. Like there's planning departments and you
yeah.
need planner permission to do all that stuff. But um,
And you'll know
you'd
from being there, Alan, like it's so steep. Like it's like every single street, there's a street above another street above another street. These ones are the ones that are right down by the harbour. Even though they're steep, there's still parts of the track that you can be way up on bridges looking over parts of the track. And there's no, because it's so old of a town, it's not like your big new cities that are built where it's just a grid system. There's no part of Monte Carlo that is straight and it's not easily done. Um, Also, if you do take it to another part of the town, it just closes the whole town, whereas they're able to still have the town running in behind. But I think I'm not sure. Like, I think there's things they could do to format wise. Like, even Lewis made a comment today saying, why not say that you've got to have at least three pits? So they've done some teams done three pits today. Like, you've got to have at least three pit stops within your race. So tactically, you've got to do something that's the most time ever than overtaking.
interesting.
Something else was said today. Why don't they do it? Change the format of it. Like unlike any other race, where qualifying's great because you're flying, you're trying to do as quick as you can, you're pushing yourself to the limit. Why not do more of a qualifying style race? A bit like a time trial, where you've got 5 laps. You go out, set a fast lap. Everyone else then does one. Then you have to try and beat that again, and you nearly take that as like a kind of a race and a point system Whereas if you mess up, so there's different things they've said. They've said, what if you do? Yeah, again, I think this is it's a good conversation that we could probably have around different scenarios.
Yeah,
that
well,
could be
F1's
fun.
F1's a sport of engineers, so
Yeah,
I'm sure they've got the best people to come up with those like creative ideas.
just don't
Um,
ask Ferrari's stats people or whatever you want to call the guys from today who made
oh,
it bad choices. Don't ask
shocking.
them what to
I know.
do.
So as we ended last week, we talked about how important qualifying is for Monaco, um, and it didn't necessarily show today, but that was from Ferrari mistakes. But qualifying, as ever at Monaco, is like, excuse me, as good as the race.
Yeah,
Um,
it was great. It really
yeah,
was. Like it's
and
per,
then
per Gasly. Like that's. Did
yeah.
you see the onboard on his car on his lap? So
So
he
I didn't see qualifying,
okay.
unfortunately.
So he was out, obviously knocked out in Q1. Didn't even
Yeah.
make it through. Like, and if you look at practice three, he was fifth. So he had pace. Like he was doing really well. Um.
So there was a red flag from my understanding,
Yep.
and I was listening to it on the radio, and they were saying that if that was a race, it wouldn't have been a red flag. They would have
No.
just brushed the debris off the track. So was it bad? Was it because it was the red
No.
flag that ruined Gasly's
Yeah.
qualifying?
Like it would it even have been a yellow? Like I don't know. Like it's the sort of thing that he just touched and they seen little bits and pieces, but yes, in a race they would never have red flagged it in a race. Like it would have yeah, it's so but like he was on his part of the lap, he was in such a fast lap. He was probably I'd say let's say 50 meters going to the speed. I was going to say it's much shorter, but it's probably about 50 meters. Like it was like he was right at the lights, and as he was driving, it turned red just before the line, so his lap didn't count because of that. Just so
But at the same time, again, they AlphaTauri sent out Sonoda in front of him,
yeah,
so there was a whole thing that they should have just won. They could have got. Apparently, I think at the when the red flag was when qualifying restarted, like AlphaTauri weren't waiting at the pit exit to go,
yeah,
and also they sent Sonoda out ahead of him. So if they
yeah,
really were trying to do everything in their power to get Gasly through,
yeah, yeah,
like they didn't. So it's not just the red flag's fault. It's AlphaTauri could have managed it better.
yeah. And then yeah, obviously had Perez pushing the end and crashing, spin of which set up obviously the grid in as it was at that time. But Leclerc was on a lap that was they said looking at Delta 7/10 faster at one point. So just insane. Like he was on another level in qualifying. Sad for the even in the race he was pulling away. He was 5.5 seconds ahead at one point. But yeah, and but yeah. So race the delayed start. Before that, grid walk. Did you see the grid walk? Oh no, sorry.
No, I
You
missed it.
were
Yeah, I caught the start, but
Martin Brundle again. I love that guy. He's so good.
was it
Just
awkward?
one of them. I think it was a girl, Sophia, or somebody. He went up to chat and like straight away, the person who she is with, the guy is just like, she's not doing any TV stuff today. He's just like, well, like we're standing here, we're pretty much halfway there. Like why? Like how are you? Sort of thing. He's just like, she's not doing TV. He's like, okay. And that's whenever he just walked off. He's just like, fair enough. But just one of those classic Martin Brundle moments on the grid. But it was really, he like you could see his frustration within it with the rain coming down. He's just like, guys, these are guys who are the professional. They're the best of the best. In the like, put wets on, go race until you can't, because obviously it chucked it down and you could see it was so wet. And then he could have red flagged the race and then had a number of laps done. But he just said that like get going. But apparently after the race, Paul Di Resta was saying on Sky that I think they were saying how it might have actually been a problem to do with the starting lights. that with the rain or something, they just couldn't get them to work. So that might have added to the delay of the race, interestingly.
Okay.
So
Even though they didn't use them, did they? It was started under a safety car, so they wouldn't have used
yeah,
the
after
start
that.
lights.
But if you had started, they would have started.
Okay,
I
okay.
think that's why they were behind. But yeah, there's a really good moment whenever Martin was doing the grid walk, which I personally liked. Whenever I put it up on social media, he was with Toto Wolff, and he's just like, "Toto, it's been ages since we've seen you." He joked around. He's just like, "That's because you only want to be with the guys at the front these days, and we're no longer there." It was good. It was a good bit of humor between the two of them, and then he just said, he says he's enjoying this time. I put the proper quote up before. He's just like, he's enjoying not having it the way it is. And Martin was like, really? He's just like, yeah, like to have
Yeah.
this.
He
Do you have
said,
it?
Toto, is it nice to get it wrong sometimes? Or sorry, Toto, it's nice to
Toto
get it wrong
said, yeah.
sometimes. Martin, really? And then Toto's like, yes, well, it sets us up for greater success in the future.
Yeah, I thought it's so good, and even like Martin's, it's like it's good. Like it's true. Like we all personally, in whatever we do, whenever we go through hard things in life and we learn different things, and that's what makes us adapt to those and learn from them, be able to get through things like that whenever they come around again better and come back stronger. So for him and those guys as a team, they will learn from this, and that's what I think. Looking at today, Christian Horner said so afterwards. He says we've lost races here because of bad tactics, and Ferrari had that today, so they've just got to learn from that. But it seems to be a thing that Ferrari just don't learn from these things, whereas Red Bull have learned from this and they knew exactly what to do today to do it. So fair play to Red Bull.
Well, you say they knew exactly what to do, but they obviously can't predict Red Bull making an absolute blunder. Or sorry, Ferrari making
Yep.
a blunder.
But they understand whenever Ferrari are on the back foot and they know what to do in that moment, so that they knew to double stack, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So he's just like, we
Yeah.
knew. So there comes a point when the undercut's more powerful and then that turns to the overcut, I think they were calling it, being more powerful. So they said, whenever you go onto the softs like Sainz did, he wasn't going to get those tires fired up, and Perez was setting the fast laps. He was setting them so much that he was the perfect distance in front of Max that the double stack would work. Whereas you've seen Leclerc lost 2.5 seconds waiting behind Sainz on the way in. That's why they're like, no, and they're box, no, stay. And he's just like, and he was already in. So they knew that they didn't get the time right coming in. So he had to wait, and if you look at it, he was 2 seconds behind, not even 2 seconds behind Max when he came out, because you could see him crossing or touching the line, which is another point we can take on.
Yeah, it was such a good moment. Like, I love Sky Sports. Sky Sports F1 is probably covers like that area of sport is documented probably better than any other channel does any other sport.
I agree.
Their coverage is phenomenal. But that moment where they had, especially with the helmet camera, like, so they showed, obviously you saw it live, Leclerc and they were like box, and they're like no, stay out, and then you just hear bleep bleep bleep, Leclerc going nuts. But then they showed the sort of overhead footage, then coming in, Leclerc coming in, and then they showed the helmet cam of it all happening. So they show the box, no, stay out, and you just see his hands just going like just
Yeah.
It was so good to see. Just
while
you're really
and while driving and everything, like how so good. So they are like, and how these guys drive is just phenomenal. But totally agree with you, Alan, on Sky being like, it is incredible. I remember back in the day watching it on BBC and it changed into ITV. I remember ITV then changed into Channel 4 and getting so frustrated with ads. I was like, oh, there's ads in Formula 1. That was so annoying. Then they got rid of the ads, and then the Sky came in, and Martin Brundle left Channel 4, went to Sky, and it just wasn't the same. The guys in Channel 4 did an incredible job, but Martin Brundle left, and the place we were in life just couldn't afford to pay for Sky every month. And then it got to a point where like I just miss it, and the whole weekend build up, all the other stuff, Formula 2 stuff I started getting into. So we paid to get Sky, and honestly, it is such a that and other sports as well, basketball, football, everything. But yeah, I fully agree with you. How they do the coverage of everything is so good. It's never just a race. Like from Thursday afternoon, it's great.
Yeah, well, they do such a good job in bringing like a complete novice in terms of knowing nothing about Formula One
Yeah,
to like a level where they could chat about very low level technical stuff. Just even it was amazing seeing their when they were talking about in qualifying. I did watch like maybe half an hour of it. They were discussing how in FP3, so the pace difference between Leclerc and Hamilton, just how Hamilton with the bumpiness of his car just was well behind, and just showing the nose angles and also the helmet cams of both, just showing you there was like along the fence there's like white marks and showing you the exact same time in the lap. You could see just because of those markers that Leclerc was like 2 car lengths ahead, and just with things like that, they're technical things that when you hear 200ths of a second or 3/10ths of a second, you don't really understand how big a gap that is until they show you the image, and you're like, oh gosh, that's miles ahead.
it's true.
Just little things like that make them so good.
Yeah, and I'd even say that if you haven't, maybe you have Sky and you don't actually just tune in to watch the qualifying or the race, have a watch of the practice sessions as well. They're really, really good because it gives the guys like Martin Brundle, who is so good in the grid walk and so good commentating during a race, but he goes around parts of the track and stands at the edge and talks about how they should take the corner. Being a Formula One driver himself, he knows these tracks. And even whenever they are doing like practice 3, they'll say Martin, take us around the track. So then he will just talk constantly, like full on what a driver thinks as it's on board. And it's so good. He'll be like, okay, third, second, first, sort of thing, like going down the gears, not down the first. They wouldn't do that, but you know what I mean. So, and then he will say, you've got to make sure you touch this part, look for the apex. And he hits the apex. And they say, now, by the time you're here, this is the next thing you've got to be thinking about. Quickly check your mirrors, make sure. And like he just talks through everything. And it's just like, it's incredible being the mind of a Formula One driver in that moment. Whereas, like, the closest I've got to that is playing on the PlayStation, where you're pretty much just driving along and you're just trying to make the corner, and that's it. Whereas they just add that extra element to it, and it is very, very good. Talking about Sky and their thing, Nico Rosberg was on today, Alan, and this is something you would have loved beforehand because he, being a Tottenham Hotspurs fan, 2 of the guys were there. They had Red Bull had Matt Doherty and Eric Dyer.
I saw photos. Yeah.
Did you hear about Rosberg asking the questions beforehand?
No.
So good. So they're just like, oh, so guys, you're here, you enjoying your race? They're like, yeah, that's amazing, it's great, the atmosphere, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then he says to Matt, first he said, so who are you supporting? Which I didn't know, he's half Dutch. So he says, I'm supporting Max. We're here with Red Bull, I'm supporting Max today. And he says, being half Dutch, that's why I'm going for him. And then Rosberg said, and for you, Eric, who you're supporting? He goes, oh, well, thanks to Red Bull for having us here. So yeah, we're going for the Red Bull guys. And then like Rosberg just calls me, goes, before we started recording, that's not what you told me. He's just like, who are you going for? He's just like, and he just stepped back and he went red. He's just like, oh no, yeah, we're going for it. He's just like, come on, tell us the truth. He goes, Lewis. It was so good. So like, I love the fact that Rosberg he just didn't care. He's just like, I know you're here with Red Bull, but who are you really going for? So he's like, Lewis is my guy, so I'm going for him. So
that's class.
And well, Red Bull afterwards, but he'll not back.
So obviously back to the race. Moments of the race, it starts on full on wet tires, and then I think I can't remember who's first. So some people move from wets to intermediates. At that point, Perez comes in. He's the first of the leaders to go on intermediates. It was quite fun because I was watching it with my dad today, and I'm not an expert. You're the resident expert on the podcast. In my dad's house. I'm the resident expert there, so
nice.
he was just asking me lots of questions. And we were discussing about why bring Perez in, why not Max? Why are Ferrari like letting Red Bull make the call? Like why? All the tactics. It was just fun. More just because you don't like you processing it out loud to him. Like it made me just think a lot more in depth about it. Because obviously you bring Perez in because he's the guinea pig. Like it's a lot. You're happier to make a mistake with your second driver, so that if it's a mistake, then Max stays out and benefits from it. But it was just interesting hearing them all talking about moving to intermediates, and then Carlos Sainz coming on the radio, and he's like, "We should stay out. This is going to go from wets to dries, to mediums." So just hearing his thought process around it. So then Red Bull came in, and then they brought in Leclerc, didn't they? They were going to bring in Sainz, and you could hear Sainz having that dialogue. They were like coming in, he's like, "No, we should stay out longer," and then they were like, "No, box," and then it got further around the lap, and they were like, "No, stay out."
Yeah.
But then they brought Leclerc in.
At that point, I was just like, why has Leclerc now come in? If they've told him to stay out, why bring Leclerc in? That was the point. I was just like, this isn't right. Something's off. Either they should have brought Carlos in, but at that point they'd left him out too long. We knew the undercut was done, so the only way they could have come back is if they had pitted Sainz.
And you could see how fast the intermediates were, because Gasly, I think, was the first to go on, and he was right up Guan Yu Zhou or Zhou Guan Yu's
and you could see
tail
like the place where he overtook him. Like you rarely see anybody overtaking there going into swimming pool. So just an incredible overtake, but also shows you that they were so much quicker. So whenever Perez was on those, it's just like for sure that was the time, either the lap after, or they had the. I think. So I haven't seen the onboard of Carlos's lap coming out, but he said he was held up in traffic, and that is what cost him the race win. That's why he was annoyed. So I think I'd love to see that, to see who it was who held him up, or how bad it was, because it was literally a second in it, and or second or two. But if that was the case, then Carlos had a great in himself. It was fair play to him for holding to what he thought was right and going for it. Leclerc probably he just went with the team and trusted them on what they had seen.
That's the thing. There's two mistakes. If you listen to that wee clip I played at the start, I'll put the link sort of in the show notes below. But you hear Leclerc just saying like it was too many mistakes. I'll play it for you. Like
it's a good interview. I love how we were saying this before we started, but just how Leclerc holds himself is really impressive. Like you would be so annoyed, like if you can imagine some of the other drivers. Will not mention the hot-headed ones, but like some of them would not be up for an interview at all afterwards, and others would just be like fuming with the team and let it go. He has done well. Sorry, he's like a dream to have, because he's so well versed. He can speak in multiple languages, and he's so cool headed. It's funny watching it with my dad. He's just like, Lewis Hamilton just does not stop talking, and he's always complaining. And it is like it comes across in that. He's just like, oh man, we shouldn't be. Like whenever they were talking about the safety car coming in after the first couple of laps, he's like, man, we're still slipping out here. Shouldn't come in. And then he's just constantly on team radio, which as a Lewis fan, like you just accept that's him, because you know at times he's serious, at times he's just letting people think he's more frustrated than he is. Yeah.
But the juxtaposition to Charles is like, now Hamilton, he's great afterwards. He normally does calm down. Very rarely do you have him rant. He does at times, but very rarely is he afterwards blaming everyone. But here's Leclerc's at the start here.
By your fellow drivers, and we could hear your agony on team radio. Do you feel like you were let down by the team today?
Let down is not the word. Sometimes mistakes can happen, but there's been too many mistakes today overall. And obviously in those conditions, you rely a little bit on what the team can see, because you don't see what the others are doing with intermediates, with dry tires. I've been asked questions whether I wanted to go from extreme wet to the slicks, and I said yes, but not now. It will be a bit later on in the race. But I don't understand what made us change our mind and go on these intermediates. We got undercut, then I stopped behind Carlos. I mean, there's been a lot of mistakes, and we cannot afford to do that.
Yeah.
Just
I even love how it's like let down. He's just like, let down's not the word, because that's typical media thing, being like, oh, the team have let him down. He's just like, nope, I'm not biting. I'm not biting to this. He's like, I'm not let down. It's just there's been mistakes. So we have got to learn from the mistakes. So yeah, it's good. So on that, the main changes came around pit stops, and I have seen that Ferrari are protesting both of the exits or both pit stops from Red Bull. It went to Binotto after the race, and he just said F1 has learnt from last year, from Abu Dhabi and everything that happened between Max and Lewis, that they have to stick to the rules. And the rules are you've got to stay to the right-hand side of the line. And it says it is clear he is on the line, if not partly over the line. So he is not to the right-hand side of the line, and nothing was done.
Yeah. Oh, like I was not fuming, but it's clear as day. Like, sorry, you said both pit exits. I'm talking about Max coming out.
I don't know the other one. I just seen that they've protested on both. It might not be the pit exit for Perez. It might be another part of the pit.
Yeah. So for those of you who maybe didn't watch or whatever, Charles came in. He was stuck behind Sainz. They had their pit stop, and then Red Bull double stacked. So Perez comes out of the pit lane in front of Sainz. That's fine, I think. And then it's pretty close with Max and Charles. Max coming out, it's like a right-hand turn, and he gets a bit squirrely. He sort of, like, you can see, like, he almost slips. Like,
squirrely, probably because he's under pressure and knows he has to get out first.
Exactly, so, but very clearly slips and goes straight across. Like, no, yeah. It's granted it's right at the end, but goes straight across. But if that's a faster line to come out there and just not take the corner. So maybe they're thinking that, like, no, it'd be different maybe if Leclerc was like right beside him, but they're maybe in their heads thinking, well, it didn't actually affect the positioning. He was coming out first, but it's a lot slower to hug that barrier and go round, and Leclerc coming on the racing line. So,
and also, if he was right to the right-hand side, like over that half a metre more for that extra tiny little bit, like he was on the race line a lot quicker, tyres are cold, everything. It could have changed things a little. It might not have, but what Binotto was saying is you've got to stick to the rules, and that's not what they're doing, and we've been here before.
And they have to at least address it. Like, it was so clear that it was a thing.
Yep.
Like, how can... And clearly, like, surely Binotto... Well, I suppose this is the one... Like, this is... If there are downsides to not being able to be in the race director's ear. Yeah. Like, this is one. Like, last year, they would have been... Toto would have been straight on saying...
Which
Michael,
I think...
Max was on the line.
Yeah, this will show now in the protest. So now has to show that this works in the fact that if they can't talk to them during the race, they have to be able to talk to them now. And they've got to say... So they have to address this. The FIA now have to say why it was okay. And if they can say that's okay, does that mean that someone driving on the line next week is okay? Which isn't going to be the case. So they have to... I think they have to address this. Is that I don't know what it's going to be. Like, is it a time penalty? Normally, this is a 5-second penalty, that sort of thing. It's not normally.
It's 10. It's 10 seconds, is it not? Or is it 5?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Remember what happened to Perez and Sainz in Azerbaijan? Not Azerbaijan. Abu Dhabi. No.
I forget the race, but I know. I know
second race of the season. I thought it was 10-second time penalty.
And as well, I just a bit of Ferrari fan. I remember every time it's happened to one of their drivers. So because you're like, but they've got to stick to the rules, and this is one of these things that I think.
Saudi Arabia. Sorry, it was Saudi Arabia.
Okay, yeah.
Perez was coming out and cut the line.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So they've got, and that was this season. So and they made the call during. That's whenever they let him through, wasn't it? They said you've got to let him through.
Yeah.
The safety car. It was a safety car line. Was it safety car line?
Oh, okay.
Who crossed the safety car line first? That was the safety
Yeah.
car line. So there's been a penalty for other. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll obviously chat about that in next week's podcast with whenever it is non-race week, and we're going to see what has happened since then. But I would be surprised. I'm going to say no. I would be surprised if they don't do something. But at the same at the same time, I'd be surprised if they don't, and it's just another FIA thing. But we will see. Um, you picked for Roger versus Alan this week. You picked Vettel, and we were texting. We always text on Saturday, being like, "Okay, it's your pick, it's my pick, it's your pick, it's my pick." So I was like, "Okay," I was like, "I know who I want to pick, but you go for it." And you picked Vettel, and
Yeah.
that's who I wanted to pick simply because of the stats. I put this stats up in one of our stories this week saying how he how he has performed at Monaco since he started his Formula One career has just been incredible. The amount of top five finishes he had, he's the person who scored the most points in Monaco. If you add all the points up, like I mean, obviously he's been around for quite a while, but like Kimi Räikkönen, who obviously isn't there this year, but was before Alonso, Hamilton, all these guys who have won Monaco before, he still has more points than any of them. So and he had qualified ninth or eighth, and I was like, he's gonna. This is a good time to play Vettel. I was like, he might not do well in other races, but he's there. If it's raining or it's Monaco, no one can overtake. He's not going to lose many places, but he's not going to make many. So whenever you picked, I was like, oh no! So like, I have to go for someone. Tactics wise, this is when it's come in. So I nearly went for Ocon, who was just behind him, being like, I think Ocon's got a better car, and he did finish above him, but the 5 second points put him behind. So I
Oh,
would have
really?
lost. So I was sitting there going, I'm so glad I didn't do it. So I went for, you haven't seen us with me, I went for Norris this week, being like, I think Norris is solid. I know he hasn't been feeling well, but he's just good. He's a good driver in the wet. And if it was a wet race, I was like, I think he can hold this. So
It's funny because
you,
yeah, so you're what, 4-1
it's
ahead
4-1.
now. But just hearing your rationale behind choosing Vettel, like the data, the stats, the history, you text me and it's like, I know who I'm picking, but it's your pick first, so let me know. I was like, oh, I haven't actually thought about this. So literally it was a 10-second process where I went on to Formula One's Instagram page, just do the starting grid, went on, and Vettel just was the first thing I saw that he was starting 7th. I was like, oh, starting 7th in Monaco, you can't overtake, I'll choose Vettel. Yeah. That was it.
In your quick like look view of it, you done very well. Like it was decent. I'm slightly getting into this too much. I'm enjoying it. I just love the fact that so you'll see on social media where we've put all the names of drivers up. The drivers are in order of how they finished last year. Obviously there's some new drivers in there, but I'll go by where their team are. So the more lines that are scored out from the people who we've picked, so mine are generally higher, so I should be ahead.
That's why I'm not that worried that you're 4-1 ahead. I'm like, there's a lot of races to go.
All I need is I just need to make sure there's certain drivers who you want to win and maybe they want to win. Like whenever TikTok picked Max Verstappen for me, I was just like, oh no, he's got to do well, and thankfully he did. But I'm happy that because Norris was one of those ones that could either have a good race, bad race, like Vettel. So happy to have got that one today, and it's now 4-1. It's good. It's back to me picking first next week, so you might now do a wee bit more tactics.
I know,
Or
and then
not,
sure,
you might just.
the next time it's my first pick, we'll do a TikTok one, sure. Or maybe you don't want to do a TikTok one. I'm just like, it should be.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
I suppose I could screw you over again because in my head I'm like, it's my turn to get screwed over, but it may work in my favor, so maybe not.
We have Azerbaijan coming up in 2 weeks, which is the Baku Grand Prix, which is always a great one. I'm going to say early on now, well, we can chat about it next week, but I think it's going to be a heavy Red Bull track. They've got extra speed. There's probably one of the longest straights with DRS and the whole calendar. Those guys are gonna. I think they will do very well. It is 2 weeks, so there could be part upgrades for some cars, but
Mercedes are going to be on the podium. That's my prediction.
do you know what? I could see Russell on the podium. I would. Yeah, I think that could happen. But just what I know, our time's pretty much running short here, Alan. So let me finish with an Ask Alan. This week, it's slightly linked to news this week. Whenever I say news, it's not mainstream news. It's more social media. Ferrari world news is that Ferrari have linked with Lego and are bringing out a new car, which I'm very happy about. Not so happy about the price. It's going to be a ridiculous price, but it's one of these huge cars with like so many pieces. I think it's 300 quid or so. So
Formula One car?
No, one of the road cars. It's beautiful. I know Porsche have one, Lamborghini have one, Land Rover have one. Like they are, and they're all around that price. But they're great. So my wonderful mother-in-law bought me this beautiful little Lego Ferrari. This is 1970 Ferrari, which I built a while back, a couple of weeks ago. So much fun. 8-year-old plus, but still love it. So
You're plus.
Great. So yeah, it's so good though. Like how they do everything in it. Sorry for those of you who are listening. If you're watching YouTube, you can see it. But yeah, so 1970s Ferrari, great. So my Ask Alan this week is, if you could have a Lego model car, what would you want to have?
My favorite car in the world is like a 1960s Austin Mini. So
Nice.
Super scaled up to where you could maybe fit in it. I'll choose that. So a life-size model of a life-size Lego model of an Austin Mini or a British Leyland Mini, any of those.
Yeah. Nice. Good.
That'd be my goal.
Good pick.
Although, judging by the sound of that, it would cost almost as much as an actual Mini.
Yeah. No, that's but by the models that they've done of some of the car, they're so good. They really are great. So well done, Lego, and all these things. Yeah. Lego, if you are listening, I would love them. I'll build it and put a video up. Not that they're gonna listen, but one day we could see. But yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, well, so next week, no race, and then the week after, is it Azerbaijan?
Yep.
Which is an exciting race for a street circuit. It's probably one of the best street circuits.
I agree. Yeah, good overtaking.
You can overtake lots of technical narrow bits throughout the old town, and you're almost guaranteed some sort of drama as a result. So yeah, can't wait. It's actually one of my favorite. It's probably one of the most stunning as well at different parts.
It's a great track. I would say that it was the track that, looking at the whole championship last year, if Lewis could have changed anything, that's the circuit he would have done different.
Yeah, that would have
race restart with 5 laps to go and just went straight.
Yeah,
like
it's so crazy that it's crazy that the slip of a thumb or whatever could cause that. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But then that's the thing, like, pardon?
Hopefully.
What did you say there?
Bring on more drama in 2 weeks' time. It'd be great to have it.
Absolutely. It would be great for the championship if somehow Leclerc and Verstappen didn't finish the race. That would set it up. I know as a Ferrari fan that's something you'd hate to hear, but
no. Do you know what? I'd be fine with that if Sainz got the win and his first ever win. I would take that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sainz, Russell, and Vettel would be a great podium.
Oh, right. Well, that was good to speak to you. Thanks to all of you who listened this week. As ever, you can follow us everywhere on social media at that F1 show. And also this YouTube video will be live tomorrow, or it's depending when you're listening to this, Monday at 6 p.m. on YouTube. So we'll speak to you next week when there's no race. Take care, everyone. Cheerio. Bye.